and welcome to Stretford, Paddock. Good morning. We're here for the news today. And first up, this is Dimitar Berbatov. It's a good little talking point, this one, actually, because he's come out and he's said that he doesn't know if Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba can play together. He said he's pleased and impressed by how well integrated into the team Fernandes has been in such a short space of time. He says his teammates are looking for him with the ball because they know he can create magic. He looks happy to be playing for United. I really hope he continues this form. Dimitar Berbatov, of course, United legend, goes on to say, as a fan of Paul Pogba, I want him to stay at United. I think it would be the best for him. But I am curious to see how he will link up with Fernandes. They're similar players, both intelligent enough to think 3 steps ahead when they're on the ball. Sometimes footballers are too similar to play together, but I hope that's not the case here. Let us know in the comments what you think to this. Do you think Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba are too similar to play with each other? Do you think it's a case of Bruno was brought in to be a replacement for Paul Pogba, and we'll never see him play together? Obviously, we'll come on to our second story in a little bit, but with the Premier League, whether this season is going to be finished or not is very much up in the air. The chances of us seeing them play together are shortening by the day. Someone says, I agree with the title, Bruno and Pogba won't work. Pogba and Sanchez didn't work together, always on each other's way and lanes. Same thing with Bruno, maybe. Yeah, well, Pogba likes to play in that left-hand side, doesn't he? Which I think is why him and Sanchez didn't really work together. But I almost think we've seen Pogba and Rashford work together, and Rashford takes up somewhat similar spaces to Sanchez. I just think Sanchez was in such a poor run of form and such a poor mood with his career that I don't think anyone would have worked with him necessarily. But I think Bruno does tend to drift out to the right hand side a little more than Pogba does. But it's hard, it's hard to know. Someone's saying Pogba is not signing a new contract, so he probably is leaving. Well, we don't know if he's signing a new contract, do we? That's one thing that it remains to be seen. We obviously saw yesterday that Paul Pogba and Victor Lindelof were training together at Paul Pogba's house, I think. No offence to Paul Pogba, because it's bigger than any room I've got in my house, but not the biggest training room. It was a little sort of training facility, I suppose, in the back room of his house there. And he was wearing a Juventus shirt, but I think that was more of a solidarity thing than anything else. But it will be interesting to see if they can play together, and see if they ever will play together. Jack Grealish is another one that's been mentioned at United, and I think he's not quite the same as Pogba, but we are buying players that like to occupy similar positions at least. Maybe that's either side of a number 6 or something like that, but they do tend to, Pogba and Bruno and Grealish all like to get into that attacking third as play develops. So I suppose it's, a lot of teams have multiple players that do that though, so it's not, I don't think there's necessarily an inherent problem with having multiple attacking midfielders playing at the same time, but it's not necessarily the case that they can play together. Someone says recap, please. It's only been 3 minutes in. I will recap it in a little bit, though. Don't worry. Someone says they would work in a 3. Basically, Dimitar Berbatov has come out and just said as part of an interview. I don't think he's necessarily slammed the idea of them playing together. He just thinks that they may be a little bit too similar to work together. I'll repeat the quotes again. Dimitar Berbatov, obviously former Manchester United striker. If you don't know him, then I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if Fernandes and Pogba can play together. This was when he was speaking to Betfair. Fernandes has quickly become an influential player at United. I'm pleased and impressed by how well integrated into the team he's become in such a short space of time. His teammates are looking for him with the ball because they know that he can create magic. The part of this that is the interesting part is he says, as a fan of Paul Pogba, I want him to stay at United. I think it would be best for him, but I am curious to see how he will link up with Fernandes. They're similar players, both intelligent enough to think 3 steps ahead when they're on the ball. Sometimes footballers are too similar to play together, but I hope that's not the case here, because with Fernandes and Pogba in the same midfield, United could be a very imaginative team that would surprise opponents next season or even sooner. There's definitely promising elements to this. I think the idea of both of their creativity at the same time as each other on the same pitch together is something that's very exciting, with someone in behind them to kind of hold the midfield together. But Oliver Edwards there saying, I think we need a proper CDM for Bruno and Pogba to work together. Yeah, and as much as I like Fred and McTominay, and I think they're both really good, I think of the players we have at the moment, I think Matic would be the most suited to sit in between those two. Especially if you're not trying to stifle the creativity of either of them. You could have, I think Bruno or Pogba can kind of sit deep alongside another pivot, and you could play one of them deeper. But I think if you do that, you are losing some of that attacking threat that both Bruno and Pogba offer. So I think the only player we have that on his day can really work as a single kind of defensive anchor, I think is Nemanja Matic, which whilst I think Fred has been absolutely excellent this season and improved tremendously, and I think Scott McTominay's looked good since he's come back from injury, and was good before his injury. I do think that we are limited in terms of the players who you can just stick in between Pogba and Fernandes and allow them both to be at their best going forward. Right, our next story then. Let's move on. This is a big story as well, actually. There is currently a Premier League meeting taking place over Skype or over video, apparently. I don't know whether their meetings are always over video, because I'm sure it's quite hard to get all of these powerful Premier League associates and delegates and representatives all in one room at the best of times. But I think now's a good excuse, or not even a good excuse, a fair reason to do this sort of thing over video. But they are discussing a potential... Well, they're discussing all potential options. So, as things stand, the Premier League is postponed until the 4th of April, which is a Friday. So, the weekend games commencing on the 4th. Sorry, the 3rd is the Friday. Weekend games commencing on the 4th. But that's 2 weeks away, and there's almost no chance that the Premier League will be coming back then. So, the current meeting is to decide when the Premier League may come back, if it will come back, how things will be decided. Well, this is the Premier League meeting, what this could mean for the rest of the season. So this is Sky Sports reporting on this meeting. Premier League clubs and officials will meet on Thursday to discuss plans for the remainder of the season following the coronavirus outbreak. There has been a coronavirus outbreak. If you don't know much about that, just Google it. You might not have heard about it. No one's really been talking about it. Top flight fixtures in England are currently suspended until April the 4th, though that is widely expected to be pushed back, like I said. And Premier League bosses will now hold a key meeting with clubs to discuss the next steps amid the pandemic. So who's going to be there? All 20 clubs will be represented on the call, led by Premier League interim chair Claudia Arney. She was present on last week's call along with Premier League chief executive Richard Masters, and Arney is expected to have a more leading role in discussions. So what's on the agenda? So this is basically what's being discussed at this meeting. When will the season, or will this season end? That's a big one, and it's obviously a massive thing to discuss. This is the Premier League's ambition is to resume and get the games played when it's safe to do so. We saw talks yesterday that UEFA are hoping to allow domestic leagues to be concluded by June the 31st. 30 days have September, April, May. I don't know. Has June got 31 days or 30 days? Yeah. So whatever the last day of June is. And we'll come back in a minute to why that's so important. But given the ongoing uncertainty around the coronavirus pandemic, we are unlikely to receive a concrete answer on a time frame at this stage. Great. Will the season be null and void? That's another thing. So if the season can't be ended by playing all the games, will we just say this season never happened, this season is null and void? How will that affect the likes of relegations, promotions? Will anyone win the title? Will anyone get Champions League spaces? Or I'm sure they will get Champions League spaces, but how will that be decided? And another one, this is the final point which I wanted to come to anyway, is why not extend the end date to the season? The Premier League has committed to finish the season by June 30th, which is the last day of June, by the way. I knew that all along. Should the situation improve, along with every other league in European football, but they will only resume games when it's safe to do so. Someone said, on the face of it, why not, extend the season? But one of the problems is player contracts that tend to end on the 30th of June. The likes of transfer window opening that opens on the 1st of July. A lot of players that, if you've got players that are leaving you, or you're letting go at the end of the season, and you're meant to be playing games halfway through July, can you play those games with, you've got less players, you haven't got transfers in, or is it fair that United play 6 games in the Europa League, or 5 games, whatever it is, with a new signing in? Is that fair? Especially if you could buy a player from another Europa League team and play them, or you could buy another player from a Premier League team and play them, or how will all that work? So I think that's one. The sort of season ends contracts wise and that kind of thing at the end of June before the transfer window opens. So I think that is why that's been put as a provisional date by UEFA. But again, this is completely unprecedented territory, uncharted waters, if you will. So how we're going to go forward is anyone's guess, really. But we will be bringing you, I'm sure, the news of this. We've got a podcast coming later. So any breaking news, any big news will be on our social media at Stretford Paddock on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And we will be bringing you that news on the podcast in a little bit as well. And it's going to be a good one as well. We've got some good guests on for that. So make sure you tune in for that. But let us know what you think in the comments. Do you think this season should just be null and void? Do you think these games should be tried to be played out in the safest way possible? If there is a safe way to do it, what do you think? Football will come back as soon as all players are clear. It will be behind closed doors. Then we'll allow people back in stand by stand. I think it's assuming all the players are living in quarantine at the moment, except Mason Mount, obviously, who goes out and plays five-a-side when he wants to. It's hard to know exactly when things will be back because it's not just the players and it's not just whether they've got it or not. It's there's going to be TV cameras there, there's going to be journalists there, there's going to be managers there, there's going to be all the families of all of these people. It's not just whether the players have it on the day or not, it's whether the environment that every single match going person is in the 2 weeks before a game could make a game unsafe. So it's very difficult to just say, make sure all the players don't have coronavirus and we can play games, which is obviously one of the big issues that's been tackled in this meeting. Is Joe the only one who works on Stretford Paddock now? Yeah, pretty much. There's nothing behind me, just a burning wasteland that used to be an office. No, Kieran's in today. Hi, Kieran. Kieran's waved. He didn't say hi. He can't speak. He's got a bit of a dry cough. Right, that's going to be all from me at the moment. Like I said, we will be back for a podcast later today. We're going to have Joe McGrath. Who else we got on today? Possibly Adam McCullough, Stephen Howson as well, and most likely Kieran. So that will be a very good one. Make sure you tune in for that. Right, thank you very much for joining me again. Any news, any breaking news will be out on Stretford Paddock's social media, so check that out. And if you like this mug, you can buy one online and we'll put the link in the description. Cheers.